In my book, you get points for staying out of the can.
Good thing for me, then, that your book don't mean no gods to me. What's yours is yours, Paulie, but what ain't is anybody else's.
We all know the legend. A young Tony Soprano and Jackie Aprile robbed the card game of one Feech LaManna. Feech was a feared and respected capo, a man Tony described as a, quote, legend, and these two young punks had the audacity to rob him. Not only did Tony and Jackie ultimately get away with it, but their treachery actually helped solidify their standing as rising stars in the family. Oh, Madone. Tony and Jackie were on the fast track to becoming made men, but poor Ralphie caught the clap from some hippie chick, and his thing was leaking like a busted pipe. But when Ralph detailed the legendary tale to Jackie Jr., history failed to repeat itself, as the story planted a seed in young Jackie's mind that would ultimately lead to his own demise. Will we get to see the legendary card game robbery in the Many Saints of Newark? Personally, I hope so, because I always felt there was a certain untold subtle mystery behind that event. And if they do include this scene, I suspect it will reveal new information that portrays the legend with a profound new spin. In the series, we never actually see the game, even in flashback. We instead see the story's impact on Jackie Jr., who is inspired by the daring exploits of his father to recruit his knucklehead pal Dino to rob a current card game. Perhaps needless to say, they failed miserably, but this idea that characters in the present day weren't living up to the past was a common theme throughout The Sopranos. Making a name for oneself and gaining respect isn't easy in the mob world. Christopher, and to a greater extent his pal Brendan, struggled to make a name for themselves in Season 1. In Season 2, Matthew and Sean are seeking the same. And of course, Jackie Jr. and Dino. Christopher was the only one from that group to make it, in large part because of who he knew, his close relationship with Tony. Like Moltisanti, Jackie had roots in the biz, but Jackie Jr. and Dino were incompetent. Their efforts resulted in complete fiasco. They were high on drugs and wishy-washy before they even attempted robbing Gene's game, and when they finally did decide to go for it, Gene's dealer was killed, Fiorio was wounded, Matouche tucked tail and ran, Dino was whacked on the spot, and Jackie fled and hid out before he too was hunted down. Unlike Tony and Jackie Sr., these two half-wits had neither the smarts nor the skills, not to mention the connections to pull off the job. As far as we know, one of the key differences in the two situations is that there was no bloodshed at Feech's game, allowing it to become a funny story of daring rather than a crime that needed to be punished. Beyond that, Tony and Jackie had powerful family members who helped enable and protect their little Mickey Mouse crew. There was Tony's father, Johnny Boy, and Uncle June, and then Richie Aprile was also around. Tony and Jackie had to give some of the money back, and it would be interesting to learn what other arrangements were made behind the scenes. And it's likewise interesting to wonder what kind of arrangements may have been made on Jackie Jr.'s behalf, had his father still been around, or if his caper didn't result in tragedy. I, for one, would love to see the reaction of an angry Feech LaManna after the fact. I imagine it might make Johnny Sack's reaction to the 90-pound mole seem tame by comparison. Or was it a 95-pound mole?
There's a lot more interesting shit being talked about in there, besides Ginny Sack's fat ass.
Regardless of the differences between the two robberies, the bloodshed, and the lack of a living connection and protector, this all plays back on another underlying theme that is omnipresent throughout the entire show. It's something Tony himself mentioned early on in the pilot.
It's good to be in something from the ground floor. I came too late for that. I know. But lately I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end. The best is over.
Guys like Junior and Feach love to talk about the good old days, and were always quick to point out how worse things became in comparison. Then you have all the guys like Brendan and Matthew and Sean, and all these young punks looking to make a name for themselves. And you get the feeling that there were a lot more wannabe punks trying to earn and hustle than there were back in the day. What Tony said to Melfi in the beginning was correct, at least from his perspective. They were the last generation that came up in a time where the game was drastically different. During the entire Sopranos run, you had guys flipping because they didn't want to do hard time, with drug laws that resulted in long sentencing. Guys copping deals where they have the audacity to even admit the existence of the mafia. Guys who simply would not keep their mouths shut like the old school guys who did serve hard time. Feach LaManna did 20 years in the can. Tony B was in for almost 17 years. Richie Aprile was in the can for 10 years. And Phil Leotardo served some hard time in the can too, where he compromised. But I'm not sure if Phil ever said how long he was in for. Even Corrado didn't flip and showed a willingness to serve time when put to the test. When compared to Tony and his own father, Jackie Jr. simply wasn't made from the same stuff. Jackie Jr. never had the makings of a junior varsity athlete, let alone a varsity one. In a very real sense, Jackie's weaselly, punkish behavior is a representation of this decline in the mob world, how the best days were gone, the game had changed, and the glory days in Tony's mind were indeed coming to an end. And if Jackie Jr. is representative of the type of decline Tony was talking about, then who better represents the complete collapse of the ideals of the good old days more so than his own son, AJ? At times, AJ seems like a mirror image of Tony, only without the guts or ambition. Instead, he was spoiled rotten by his parents, and was forever trapped in the identity of his father's son. Like Tony, he suffered from panic attacks, and even briefly flirted with a life of crime, without the success of his father. In fact, AJ can be said to fail at everything he's ever tried, including killing himself. The poor kid can't even party correctly and pass out with some dignity.
What's different about you?
He has no eyebrows, Tony.
Look at your face. If you got some kind of sexual proclivity with that teacher or whatever, now's the time to tell us. I mean, what went on up there? Poppers and weird sex.
What? No.
AJ at times likes the attention he gets as a mob boss's son and the respect that comes with being the son of a man in power, but he doesn't have the stomach, the skills, or the smarts for the lifestyle. And ultimately, he resents the fact that he lacks any real identity beyond being Tony Soprano's son. AJ isn't the only member of the younger generation to not have what it takes. AJ briefly partners up with Carlo and Patsy's sons, but they were rather incompetent too, even if they were more competent than AJ. Carlo's kid got busted, and that made Carlo flip. They all lacked the mettle required, and this was something Tony knew all too well, at least about AJ, telling him repeatedly to follow in his sister's footsteps and pursue a career outside of crime. And this culminated when Tony's connections aided AJ after his ill-advised botch attempt to avenge Tony when he went after Uncle June. But these differences between Tony and his son circle back to the bigger theme at play regarding Feach. The Battle of Generations. At one time, Feach was feared and respected, and he went ahead and served his 20 years as one of the mobsters who went down in the 1980s when the government was using RICO laws to convict old school guys like Feach. When Feach was finally released, however, he hit the ground running. He was barely out of prison when he handed a fat envelope to Tony B. In a short period, Feach had his big toe stuck in everything. He was back in the game, he knew the rules, and he was ready to earn in any way he could. But what Feach didn't know was that the rules as he knew them had changed. He recognized that women changed their grooming habits in their bikini area, but he was too slow to evolve with understanding the new rules about how things worked in the mob world, a world he once knew and no longer understood. In that sense, Feach had a lot in common with Richie Aprile. Richie wasn't as old as Feach, and he didn't serve as much time in the can as Feach, but Richie had that old school mentality, served his time, and he also hit the ground running after being released from prison. Poor Beansy.
I'm sorry if I offended you. Gotta remember, Tony, I still think he is a kid.
Richie and Feach both viewed Tony as the same punk they saw him as prior to serving their time. They didn't realize the times had changed, and they didn't recognize how Tony himself had changed. Not only were Feach and Richie inclined to cause problems and step on toes, they also never respected Tony as a boss. Richie tried conspiring behind Tony's back with Uncle June, and there is reason to believe that Feach may have played that same card. Tony had learned his lesson from the Richie debacle and understood that Feach was a threat to his authority and that Feach didn't respect him. Tony recognized that in this moment.
What do you get when you cross an accountant with a giant jet airplane? A boring 747.
You're the boss. They're scared of you. They have to kiss your ass, laugh at your stupid jokes.
Well, what about Artie then?
When Tony remembered Feach was the only one not laughing at his joke, he knew Carm was right. Feach wasn't scared of Tony. Feach didn't respect Tony. Feach still viewed Tony as some punk upstart. And when Tony upstaged Feach with his awful joke, he had stolen Feach's thunder. And that was one thing that defined Feach's character. As a once feared man, he loved pontificating and being the center of attention. But now that punk kid who robbed his game was stealing his thunder. And by stealing Feach's thunder, Tony had symbolically robbed him once again at his very own card game. A show of utter disrespect. And that look in Feach's face right there, if a picture could tell 1,000 words, there has to be some juicy details from that legendary tale that have not yet been revealed. So Feach was a relic from the past who didn't understand how the game had changed. And another shining example of this is when he fell for the old, hey, let's hide some hot TVs in your garage charade. Tony may have missed the old days, but he was the one who lived through the transition when Feach was away. Tony was actually pretty clever and innovative in terms of evolving with the changing times. He was typically cautious by nature, basement talks near the air duct, always trying to create distance between himself and his subordinates. Generally averse to violence for no reason or causing undue attention, being very cautious with how he phrased things through code words and payphones, and even having broken downs like Chrissy and Georgie sweep for bugs. Tony had a very modern approach, even if his execution at times was less than stellar. Feach didn't fear or respect that punk kid Tony. But Tony admired and revered Feach, even referring to him as a, quote, legend. The ironic thing here is that Feach LaManna was the personification of the good old days Tony was referring to when he told Melfi he came in at the end and the best was over. And yet Feach, with his old school code of conduct, he served his time, and then he was effectively forgotten. Feach was forgotten like so many other mobsters who were convicted under RICO at that time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what truly represented the demise of the good old days where Tony came in at the end when the best was over. Tony did come in at the end. He made his first hit on Willie Overall in 1982, and Feach was convicted in 1984. That moment when Feach was put away, symbolically, that represents the very decline that Tony mentioned when the game started changing. Tony evolved with the changing times, while relics like Feach rotted and were forgotten. In conclusion, whether they show the card game or not, and I think they almost certainly will, I think that will be one of the more profound underlying themes in the Many Saints of Newark. And they have a real opportunity here, because during The Sopranos, most viewers saw the younger generation, guys like Jackie Jr. and Brendan and Matthew and Sean and Dino and even Christopher to some extent. They were punks. And now we have the chance to see when some of our favorite characters like Tony and Sil were nothing more than young punks themselves in their little Mickey Mouse crew before they had evolved into full-fledged low-life criminal scumbags. Whatever happens, I cannot wait to watch The Many Saints of Newark. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful night.
When did you ever step in for me?
You forget? When you and my kid brother stuck up Feach Lamanna's card game? Feach was made before the electric light. If it wasn't for me, you two kids would have caught a vicious beating, to say the least.
And I gotta give your father credit for this. He had balls as big as an Irish broad's ass. I hear Jenny Sachs getting a 95-pound mold taken off her ass.
Hey, some guy's wife. Come on.
He goes, Jenny Sack had a 95-pound mole surgically taken off her ass.
He said that?
Yeah.
And you think it's funny?
What joke?
John, you're better off not hearing it. Trust me.
Fuck that. I demand you tell me, Paulie. She was having a 90-pound mole removed from her ass. The implication was that her ass is so big she could have a mole that size removed from it.
A mole on her ass? What's the joke? I still don't get it.
Well, it's not a joke, per se. It's... You had to be there.
Real lack of standards, your generation.
He told Paulie. Paulie tells Johnny. Fucking telephone game like high school girls. Want to play phone games? That party was the only time I ever mentioned Shamu's fat ass.
We don't. We should be out doing what we gotta do. Call Carlo, tell him to bring his shit. Who the fuck was Feach Lamanna anyways?
You know me, I'm an entrepreneur. Get my shy going. Sports book, whatever you say.
Well, you don't step on anybody's toes.
Me? I'm Fred Astaire. I said my nephew has this area, Gary Lamanna.
Well, fuck off, huh? I'm busy here.
I said, you heard me, motherfucker. What the fuck are you looking at? Was that a hitter? Bam! Right across the fucking coconut. It goes down. I'm on top of him. Everybody around it is getting some shots in. Everybody's going fucking crazy. You want me to fuck off? How about I fuck off all over your stupid fucking face?
I told my cousin I want to stay a civilian.
Ah, yes. The boy king. Can I trust you if I talk to you frankly about him?
20 years. I don't.
You know what the biggest change for me is? Broads shaving their bushes. I went over to Silvio's, like the Girl Scouts over there.
In my book, you get points for staying out of the can.
Good thing for me, then, that your book don't mean no gods to me. What's yours is yours, Paulie, but what ain't is anybody else's. I'm here now. I'm telling you about it now.
That's the second time I'm playing catch-up with you.
What the fuck are you talking about?
The lawn cutting.
What, do I have to send you a memo every time I move my bowels, too?
They're dropping like fucking flies.
It's all that charcoal broiled meat you people ate.
Nobody told us till the 80s.
I'm kidding you, you old fuck. What's the matter with you? Are you fucking serious?
I don't like the way I'm being talked to here.
What did I tell you when you came to me? Said you wanted back in?
Well, you don't step on anybody's toes.
Me?
Things are different now. Gotta be extra careful.
When do you know me not to be careful?
When? I said as long as you don't step on anybody's toes.
In my day.
And that's another thing. I don't want to hear no more about how it was in your day.
A mole on her ass? What's the joke? I still don't get it.
The implication was that her ass is so big she could have a mole that size removed from it.
Real lack of standards, your generation.
Did they get away with it?
What could Feach do? It was a sit-down, and the right people got some of their money back.
Sure you want to do this?
Why?
Oh, you? Fuck it, let's go down the shore.
What do you get when you're crossing the Cowden with a giant jet airplane? A boring 747.
Point was made. Father and Tony were rising stars that had to be respected.
Let's do it before the crank wears off.
Did I learn nothing from Richie Aprile? Huh? Nip it in the bud.
Feach.
flat-screen TVs, 50-inch plasma Philipses. Guy's coming down from Montreal, but he got delayed a couple of days.
I got a garage right here. Let's go out and open it up. You want to see my fucking garage? You never seen an oil stain before? Let's go.
This was the better move than taking him out. Man was a legend. Christopher agrees, by the way. Well, that's nice that he agrees.
You're the boss. They're scared of you. They have to kiss your ass, laugh at your stupid jokes.
Well, what about Artie then?